October 12th, 1944. The Leopold Canal, northern Belgium, or 5 a.m. The rain is a cold, greasy sheet, falling straight from a black sky. Private Jean-Guy Lajoie, of the Royal Hamilton Light Infantry, can no longer feel his feet. They are just 2 blocks of ice, lost somewhere in the liquid mud of the canal bank. He is 19 years old. He is a volunteer. Ahead, in the pitch dark, is the other bank. It is 80 feet of water, and then it is hell. A German MG-42, one of many, opens up from a concrete pillbox they can't see. The sound is not a rat-a-tat. It is a continuous, high-velocity rip, like canvas being torn at the speed of sound. Tracers, green and angry, skip off the water and dike. "Keep your goddamn heads down," Sergeant Bull Muldowney hisses. The order is to cross again. This is the Battle of the Scheldt. This is the watery hell. The 1st Canadian Army has been given the filthiest job in Europe, to clear the flooded, fortified, fanatic-held approaches to the port of Antwerp. Lajoie's company is at 40% strength. The platoon to his left, from the Black Watch, doesn't exist anymore. It was consolidated last week. The word reinforcements has become a bitter, desperate joke on the front line. The replacements they do get are green, barely trained, and sometimes they are dead before they learn their sergeant's name. The men in the mud of the Leopold Canal are exhausted. They are shattered. They are fighting in a meat grinder, and they know, with a chilling certainty, that they are alone, 5,000 miles away, in the manicured, Gothic calm of Ottawa. Prime Minister William Lyon Mackenzie King stares at a different kind of map. His map isn't of polders and dikes. It is a map of votes. It is a map of Canada, split in 2. King is a politician to his bones. He is a survivor. He is also a man haunted by a ghost. The ghost of 1917, the Great War, the first conscription crisis. It had torn the fledgling nation apart. English Canada, flush with patriotic British zeal, demanded it. French Canada, feeling no loyalty to the British crown or to a distant European slaughter, refused it. The crisis led to riots in Quebec City, to farmers in open revolt. It was a wound that had never, ever healed. Mackenzie King built his entire, long-running political career on one single solemn promise. It would never happen again. In 1940, with Europe ablaze, he had gone to the polls. His election slogan was a masterpiece of political evasion, not necessarily conscription, but conscription if necessary. But to the voters of Quebec, the promise was ironclad. "We will not force your sons to die in another of Europe's wars." He won, and he won big. His compromise was the National Resources Mobilization Act of 1940. It was a half-measure born of pure political desperation. It gave the government the power to conscript men for the defense of Canada. Only the defense of Canada. And so, the Home Army was born. By 1944, it numbered over 60,000 men. They were given uniforms. They were taught to fire Lee-Enfield rifles and Bren guns. They were trained. They drilled in camps across the country. They guarded the coastal batteries of British Columbia, scanning the fog-shrouded Pacific for a Japanese invasion fleet that would never come. They were, in every visible way, soldiers, but they were legally forbidden from leaving the continent. The volunteers, the men like Private Lajoie, bleeding in the Scheldt, the men who had chosen to go, had a name for them. A name spat with a contempt that only a front-line infantryman can muster. Zombies, because, in the eyes of the diggers, they were the living dead. They wore the king's uniform but lacked the soul of a soldier, the will, the choice, to fight. They were bodies, animated by the state, going through the motions of war without its terrible purpose. They were an army of ghosts, haunting the home front. In a training camp in Terrace, British Columbia, Corporal Mike Stanowski shivers in the damp coastal rain. He's 22. He's from a wheat farm in Saskatchewan. He was drafted under the NRMA. He never asked for this. He spends his days learning how to disable a tank, practicing drills to repel a phantom Japanese landing. He does his duties. He collects his pay. He writes letters to his wife. He did not volunteer to be blown to pieces in Belgium. The NRMA is the law, and the law says he stays here, defending Canada. He has an RMA stamped on his paybook. He is a zombie, and frankly, he is fine with that. He has a farm to run. He has a life to live. But the meat grinder of the Scheldt respects no political promises. The 1st Canadian Army is taking casualties at a rate not seen since the Somme. The infantry replacement pool is empty. October 19th, 1944. A casualty clearing station near Antwerp. Colonel James Leighton Ralston, Canada's Minister of National Defence, walks through a ward. The smell of gangrene, chloride of lime, and stale blood is overwhelming. Ralston is not a politician. He is a soldier's soldier, a decorated veteran of the Great War. He has come to Europe to see the situation for himself. He stops at the bed of a young man from the Calgary Highlanders. The boy is 20. He has no legs. Ralston asks the question he's been asking for a week. "Son, what do you need? What do you want?" The boy's answer is a hoarse, angry whisper. "Sir, where are the reinforcements? Why are we the only ones?" Ralston can't answer. He walks to the next man, and the next. The story is the same. "We need men, sir. We're worn out." He knows the numbers. He knows that Canada has 60,000 trained, healthy, equipped soldiers sitting in camps back home. He knows they are legally protected by his own Prime Minister, and he knows, in this moment, that the promise is a lie, that the cost of that promise is being paid by the legless boy in front of him. Ralston boards a C-47 Skytrain back to England, his jaw set like granite. The promise is broken. The casualties are too high. He's going back to Ottawa. He's going to confront Mackenzie King. The zombies must fight. And in London, at Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force, General Eisenhower's planners look at the manpower charts. They see the British scraping the bottom of their barrel. They see the Americans feeding their own sons into the machine as fast as they can. And then they see the Canadian chart. They see the 1st Canadian Army bleeding dry in the Scheldt. And right next to it, a column that makes their blood run cold. 60,000 trained infantry. Status: non-deployable. They cannot believe their eyes. It is a secret army, a phantom army, an absurdity in a war of total annihilation. The Canadians are holding out. October 24th, 1944. RCAF Station. Rockcliffe. Ottawa. 14:00 p.m. The C-47 Skytrain, painted in the dull camouflage of the Atlantic ferry, thumps onto the tarmac. The landing is jarring, but to the man inside, it is an obscene comfort. Colonel James Leighton Ralston unbuckles his seatbelt. The air inside the cabin is stale, but as he steps out onto the ladder, the Ottawa air hits him. It is crisp, clean, and smells of autumn leaves and wood smoke. It is the smell of peace. It is the smell of a country that is not at war. His boots are still caked in Belgian mud. He hasn't slept in 36 hours. His mind is a slideshow of horrors, the grey-green water of the canal, the white, waxy faces in the clearing station, the sound of a man coughing up his own lung, and the 20-year-old Highlander with no legs, asking him, where are the reinforcements? He is driven, not to his home, but directly to Laurier House, the Prime Minister's residence. He bypasses the usual channels. This cannot wait. 15:30 p.m., the Prime Minister's study, Laurier House. William Lyon Mackenzie King does not like this. He does not like unannounced meetings. He does not like ultimatums. And he especially does not like James Ralston when he looks like this. His eyes hollowed out, his uniform rumpled, smelling of the front line. King is a man of soft edges. He is a spiritualist, a negotiator, a master of delay. Ralston is a block of Nova Scotia granite. Thank you for seeing me. Prime Minister? Ralston's voice is a low rasp. He remains standing. James, you look exhausted. You must... Mr. King. Ralston cuts him off. A shocking breach of protocol. I have just returned from the Scheldt. I have seen General Crerar. I have spoken to the men. The 1st Canadian Army is being destroyed. King flinches. The news is not the reality. The reality, Prime Minister, is 500 casualties a week. The reality is that our infantry rifle companies are fighting at half strength. The reality is that the replacement pool is empty. We are sending them signallers, drivers, and clerks who have not held a rifle in 2 years. They are dying before they can be effective. Ralston steps closer to the desk. He is a soldier accusing his statesman, and all the while, Ralston's voice drops to a whisper of pure fury. I have 60,000 men, trained men, sitting in camps in British Columbia and Nova Scotia, guarding us from what? Phantoms, while our real army, the one that volunteered, is being bled white. King turns away, walking to the window. He looks out at the peaceful Ottawa street. You know the promise, James, he says softly, not looking at him. You know what it cost us in 1917. The riots, the division, Quebec. To hell with 1917, Ralston roars. The outburst shocks them both. This is 1944. We are not asking for a new army. We are asking to use the one we have. We are asking for the zombies. They are not zombies. King snaps, his political antennae ignited. They are home defense soldiers. They are sons of farmers from Kamouraska and Rimouski who were promised by this government that they would not be sent to die in Flanders mud again. That is the bond I made with Quebec. That is the bond that is holding this nation together. That bond is being paid for with the lives of volunteers from Ontario, from your own riding. Ralston counters. How long can you look those mothers in the eye and tell them their son died because a home defense soldier in Terrace was legally protected from fighting? I have a duty to all of Canada. James, not just the army. If I break that promise, my government falls. Louis Saint, Laurent, my Quebec lieutenant, will walk. The nation will split, right down the Ottawa River. What then? Who will run the war? Who will manage the peace? I am not concerned with the next election, Ralston says, his voice flat and cold. I am concerned with the next 24 hours in the Scheldt. The army needs 16,000 trained infantrymen within the next 30 days. You have them. I'm asking you to send them. I cannot. You will not. The silence in the room is absolute. It is the collision of two non-negotiable existential truths, the military necessity versus the political necessity. Then I must tender my resignation, Ralston says quietly. King's blood runs cold. This is the one thing he feared. Ralston is a symbol. He is the soldier's soldier. He is respected in English Canada. If he walks, it's not a resignation, it's an accusation. It's a vote of non-confidence from the trenches. James, be reasonable. Let us have a new recruitment drive, a special appeal, King says, grasping at straws. A recruitment drive? Ralston looks at him with utter contempt. It takes 6 months to train an infantryman. We need them now. The drive is over. The volunteers have all gone. The men who are left, they have made their choice. November the 1st, 1944. A training camp near Terrace, British Columbia. Corporal Mike Stanowski is on the bayonet course. He is 22, but his face is lined with a different kind of worry. "What are you?" the sergeant major screams in his face. The NCO is a man named Stumpy Grogan. He has a limp from a wound taken at Ortona. He was sent home against his will, and he hates them for it. "I'm a soldier, sir," Stanowski yells. "You're a zombie," Grogan screams, spitting. "You're a yellow belly in a king's uniform. You're the reason my pals are dying. You make me sick." Grogan shoves him. "Now run it again. Run it like you're actually fighting for something, not just for your paycheck." Stanowski runs. He stabs the straw-filled sack with his bayonet again and again, his teeth bared. He is filled with a cold, complex rage. He's not a coward. He was drafted. He followed the law. The law said home defense. He has a wife in Dauphin, a farm that's going to ruin without him. If the Japanese had landed at Prince Rupert, he would have fought. He would have died. But they didn't. Now, this man from Ortona, with his dead eyes and his twisted leg, calls him a coward. The newspapers call him a coward. The girl at the dance hall last week called him a coward. He and his unit, the Home Army, are trapped. They are despised by the frontline men for not going, and despised by the anti-conscriptionists in Quebec for wearing a uniform at all. They are men without a country. That night, in the mess, they listen to the radio. A clipped BBC voice announces the clearing of the Scheldt estuary at a heavy but necessary cost. They're through. Someone whispers. "Yeah," Stanowski says, stirring his coffee. "But they ain't done. They're going to the Rhine. They're going to need more." He looks down at his hands, calloused from the rifle. "Not the plow. They're going to come for us," he says, to no one in particular. "The politicians can't hide us forever." Back in Ottawa, Mackenzie King knows this. Ralston's resignation is on his desk, a ticking bomb. The English-language press is screaming for conscription. His own party is splitting in two. He must make a choice: break his army or break his nation. November 1st, 1944. The War Cabinet Room. Ottawa, 7:02 p.m. The meeting is over. It was not a discussion. It was an execution. James Layton, Ralston stands, his face pale but composed. He gathers his papers. He has been fired. William Lyon Mackenzie King had done it with surgical, devastating precision. He had not accepted Ralston's resignation. That would imply a choice. He had, instead, turned to the room and announced that he had accepted it, and that a replacement was already chosen. The other pro-conscription ministers, Howe, Angus MacDonald, are speechless. They have been outmaneuvered. "And your replacement, James," King says, the scent of victory making him magnanimous, "is a man I know you admire, General McNaughton." Ralston stops. He turns. Andy McNaughton, the father of the Canadian Army. The brilliant scientist, the commander who had trained the First Army in England for years, only to be removed from command by the British for being too cautious, too slow. Before D-Day, McNaughton is a patriot. He is also a man without an army, a man with a deep, abiding chip on his shoulder, and, most importantly, he hates the idea of conscription. He believes it ruins the purity of a volunteer force. Ralston sees the trap immediately. King isn't just replacing him. He's replacing him with the one man who might be able to solve the problem without breaking the promise to Quebec. "You are sending him?" Ralston asks, his voice low. "He has accepted," King says simply. "He believes, as I do, that a new appeal, a personal appeal from him, will convince the men to go active." Ralston looks at King. He sees the political genius, the sheer, cold-blooded maneuvering. king is not solving the military crisis. He is solving his political crisis. He is replacing the soldier who demanded action with a beloved general who promises persuasion. God help you. Prime Minister, Ralston says. He turns and walks out of the room, his muddy boots silent on the plush carpet. November 12th, 1944. A parade ground in Terrace, British Columbia, 11 a.m. The rain is, as always, a cold, miserable drizzle. The entire garrison, thousands of men, is formed up on the square. Corporal Mike Stanowski stamps his feet, his breath pluming. The word has come down. The big man, General McNaughton himself, the new Minister of Defense, is here to inspect them. The tension is thick. They all know what this is. This is the appeal. McNaughton arrives, his car door opened by a spit-shined aide. He is impressive. He looks like a soldier, tall and austere, his uniform immaculate, his decorations gleaming. He steps up to the microphone, his face grim. Men, his voice booms over the loudspeakers. You are soldiers of the Canadian Army. You have been trained. You are equipped. You are the finest force this country has ever produced. Stanowski shifts. This is a new approach. They're used to being called zombies by men like Stumpy Grogan, who is standing off to the side, his face a knot of pure contempt. I have not come here to order you. McNaughton continues, his voice rising. I have come here as your former commander, as a fellow soldier, to ask you. He pauses, letting the words hang in the damp air. Your comrades, your brothers, your neighbors, the volunteers. They are dying. They are dying in the mud of Holland. They are exhausted. They have done their part. Now, they need you. He leans into the microphone. I'm asking you to go active. I'm asking you to stand with them, to finish the job. Who among you will step forward? Who among you will volunteer, right now, for service overseas? The general steps back, his arms crossed, his face a mask of patriotic expectation, and the silence that follows is the most profound, most absolute, most violent sound Mike Stanowski has ever heard. Nothing, not a cough, not a shuffle, just the sound of the rain on thousands of steel helmets. The men stare. They stare at McNaughton. They stare at their NCOs. They stare at each other. They have been called cowards, yellow bellies, and scum for 2 years. They have been humiliated, trained for a war they were forbidden to join, and despised by the very men they are now being asked to help. They are not an army. They are a political statement, and they are done being polite. From the back rank, a single voice, a high-pitched Quebec joual, cuts through the silence. À l'enfer avec vous. To hell with you. Another voice picks it up. We're home defense, that's the law. And then, the most damning sound of all, booing. It starts as a low hiss, a rumble, and then it swells. Men in the back ranks turn their backs. A clod of mud, thrown from somewhere, lands on the edge of the stage, 10 feet from the general. Stumpy, Grogan's face goes purple. Attention, he screams. But no one is listening. The parade square is dissolving. It is a mutiny, not a violent one. It is a mutiny of pure, collective refusal. Stanowski doesn't boo. He doesn't throw mud. He just turns around. He looks at his friend, a farmer from Rimouski, who was drafted alongside him. The man nods. And together, they break ranks. They just walk away. They walk back to their barracks, their footsteps crunching on the wet gravel. They have given their answer. General McNaughton stands on the platform, his face white with shock and rage. His personal prestige, the currency he was supposed to use to save Mackenzie King, is worthless here. He has just been humiliated by his own army. He tries again. He flies to camps in Quebec. He flies to Alberta. The result is the same. The zombies will not go active. They will obey a legal order. They will not volunteer to fix a politician's broken promise. The gamble has failed. November 20th, 1944, Ottawa. The reports are on King's desk. The appeal has yielded fewer than 2,000 men. The army needs 16,000. MacNaughton is a broken man. He has failed. And King's pro-conscription ministers, who had been temporarily placated, are now done. They are in open revolt. C. D. Howe and the others deliver their own ultimatum. Send the NRMA men, or we resign. Mackenzie King is finally, completely trapped. He has no Minister of Defense who can get him volunteers. He has a cabinet that will collapse if he doesn't send the zombies. He has an army in Europe that is, for all intents and purposes, broken, and he has an army in Canada that is in open, passive mutiny. The ghost of 1917 is no longer a ghost. It is in the room, and it is holding a gun to his head. He has only one move left, the one move he has spent his entire career, his entire life, trying to avoid. He must break his promise to Quebec. November 22nd, 1944, East Block, Parliament Hill, Ottawa, 19 p.m. William Lyon Mackenzie King is alone. He has just walked out of the cabinet meeting. It is done. He has not slept. He has not eaten. He has wrestled with his ghosts, and he has made a bargain to save his government from the pro-conscriptionist revolt and to save the 1st Canadian Army from annihilation. He has sacrificed Quebec. The order in council is passed by a simple, surgically precise stroke of a pen. The National Resources Mobilization Act has been amended. The Home Defense Army is no longer for home defense. The government, by decree, will now forcibly send 16,000 NRMA men overseas. King walks to his desk and opens his diary. He dips his pen in the ink, and his hand is perfectly steady. He writes, "It was a question of the life of the government and the life of the nation. One had to be sacrificed." He has saved his government. He believes he has saved the nation. He has just ignited a firestorm. November 23rd, 1944, the Wet Canteen, Terrace, British Columbia, 18 p.m. The radio, crackling with static, is broadcasting the CBC News. The room is packed. It is hot, steamy, and smells of stale beer and wet wool. Corporal Mike Stanowski sips his watery beer. The men are quiet, listening. The broadcaster's voice is clinically detached. The Prime Minister announced today that an order in council has been passed, extending the service of NRMA personnel to include overseas. The click of a beer glass being set down is the only sound. The contingent of 16,000 home defense soldiers will be remustered immediately for deployment to the European theater. As reinforcements for the radio is cut off, not by a switch, but by a mug. A soldier from Rimouski, a quiet man named Gauthier, has just hurled his pewter mug through the radio speaker. The room is plunged into a ringing silence, broken only by the hiss of the shattered valves. "They lied," Gauthier whispers in French. The whole time, they lied. Stanowski stands up. He looks at Gauthier. He looks at the other men. Their faces are not angry. They are not scared. They are cold. They are set in a look of profound, absolute refusal. This is not an order. This is a betrayal. This is a violation of a contract, signed and stamped on their paybooks. The bastards. Someone mutters. "They're really going to do it." "No," Stanowski says, his voice quiet. "They're going to try." November 24th, 1944. The Parade Square, Terrace, 06:01 a.m. The whistle is screaming. Sergeant Major Stumpy Grogan is on the square, his face a mask of thunder. On the square, you cowardly scum, or 600 hours, fall in." The camp is silent. The lights in the barracks stay off. Get out! Here! Grogan roars, his voice cracking in the cold, wet air. A light flicks on in Stanowski's barrack. He and 30 other men are fully dressed. They are not in their bunks. They are just sitting, waiting. The barrack door crashes open. Grogan is there, framed in the doorway, backed by 2 other General Service, GS NCOs, volunteers, like him, with frontline experience. They are carrying their Lee Enfield rifles, not at ease, at the ready. Stanowski, Gauthier, on your feet. You are refusing a direct order. What's the order? Stumpy, Stanowski asks, not moving. Is it a home defense order, or is it an illegal one? Illegal. Grogan laughs, a harsh, barking sound. He steps into the room. The politicians saved your yellow hides, but the game's over. You're going. You're going to the front. You're going if I have to tie you to the front of the goddamn train myself. We're not going, Gauthier says, his voice thick with rage. This is not our war. This is your war. You chose it. We did not. Get on your feet. Grogan shoves Gauthier. Gauthier shoves him back. It happens fast. Grogan swings the butt of his rifle. Stanowski tackles him. The other 2 NCOs pile in. The barrack explodes. Men who have trained together for 3 years are now brawling, tearing each other apart. It's not a fight. It's a riot. This is the scene in every NRMA camp across Canada. In Vernon, BC, NRMA soldiers seize a cache of rifles and barricade themselves in their barracks. In Quebec, whole companies desert en masse, melting into the countryside, protected by their families and neighbors. The word zombie is painted on the side of the officers' mess in Petawawa. This is the mutiny. The government is trying to round up its own army, an army that outnumbers its jailers. The GS NCOs, the men with the wounds from Ortona and the Scheldt, are now in the surreal position of having to hold their own men at gunpoint. December 5th, 1944. Montreal, Quebec. While the roundup continues, Quebec explodes. Mackenzie King's betrayal has done exactly what he always feared. Angry mobs of students and citizens storm the streets of Montreal. They march down Rue Sainte-Catherine, smashing the windows of pro-conscription newspapers. They burn effigies of King and his Quebec lieutenant, Louis Saint-Laurent. The Quebec Nationalist Bloc Populaire holds a rally where they declare, "The Pact of Confederation is broken. The ghost of 1917 is here, and it is burning cars." December 10th, 1944. A railway siding near Prince George, British Columbia. They are prisoners. Corporal Mike Stanowski sits on a hard wooden bench in a converted cattle car. The windows are barred. There are armed guards at either end of the car, his own NCOs. Stumpy. Grogan is one of them. The roundup was brutal. It took 2 weeks. They were starved out, arrested, and marched one by one to the waiting trains. They have been stripped of their weapons. They have been redesignated. They are no longer home defense. They are now conscripts, overseas. The mutiny is over. The train lurches. The coupling's groaning. It begins to move. Slowly. East. They are heading for Halifax. For an embarkation port. For a ship. Stanowski looks out through the bars. He sees the snow-covered pines of British Columbia, the country he was drafted to defend. He is leaving it. Not as a volunteer, not as a patriot, but as a prisoner of war. Grogan walks down the aisle, his rifle slung. He looks at the faces, a mix of sullen anger and abject despair. "You should be proud," Grogan sneers, though his voice lacks its usual conviction. "You're finally going to be soldiers." "Are we?" Stanowski says, his voice dead. "Or are we just reinforcements?" Grogan looks at him for a second. The anger in his eyes is replaced by something else. Pity? Recognition? He knows where they are going. He knows what they are going to. He knows what the Germans do to green troops in their first 48 hours. He just nods and moves on. The train picks up speed, its whistle a lonely cry in the vast, cold wilderness. The secret army is no longer secret. It is captured. It is shamed. And it is, finally, on its way to the war. January 15th, 1945. A bleak transit camp near Aldershot, England. The air is thick with the smell of coal smoke and boiled cabbage. It is the same cold, greasy rain as in Terrace, B.C., just on a different continent. Corporal Mike Stanowski stands in another line, in another identical wooden hut, his feet numb. He and the other men from the train have been at sea for 12 days. They were not cheered. They were not given chocolates and cigarettes by smiling volunteers. They were herded off the transport ship like cattle, under the watchful eyes of armed military police. They are the zombies, the 16,000. The brand is invisible, but it is seared onto them. A grizzled, skeletal sergeant major, a veteran of the 1st Canadian Army, his face a roadmap of scars from Sicily, is addressing them. His voice is pure acid. Right, you're not volunteers. We know that. You're not here for king and country. We know that. You're here because we ran out of real men. He paces in front of them, his swagger stick tapping his boot. You're not fit to wear the same patch as the men you're replacing, but they are dead. And you are not. Yet, he stops in front of Gauthier, the man from Rimouski. You will be given 2 weeks of refresher training. You will learn to use a Piat. You will learn what a Panzerfaust sounds like when it's aimed at you, and then you will be sent to the line, and you will fight. He leans in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that every man in the room can hear. And if you don't, if you try to run, if you lose your nerve, you will not be arrested. You will be shot. Not by the Germans. By me, or by any other man who chose to be here. Do I make myself clear? No one answers. There is nothing to say. This is their reception. Not an army, but a penal battalion. They are viewed with more contempt than the German prisoners of all war held in camps back home. February 28th, 1945. The Hochwald Forest, Germany. The war has moved on from the Scheldt. The front is now inside Germany itself. The final push to the Rhine. A replacement truck, its engine whining in low gear, struggles up a road made of logs laid over bottomless mud. Stanowski is in the back, huddled with 20 other replacements. 10 are zombies. 10 are fresh-faced 18-year-old volunteers, their eyes wide with a terrifying, naive eagerness. The truck stops. Out, out, out! They tumble out into a scene from Dante. The forest is a graveyard of shattered trees, splintered by non-stop artillery. The air hisses. They are hurried down a communications trench that is half full of reddish water. They pass men huddled in shell scrapes, their faces grey and ancient. These are the veterans of the Royal Hamilton Light Infantry, the same unit that was bleeding to death in the Scheldt. A veteran, Bull Muldowney, his sergeant's stripes barely visible on his filthy battle dress, looks them over. He doesn't ask their names. You, and you. He points to Stanowski, Gauthier, and one of the volunteers. You're with me. We're moving up. This is it. No appeal. No negotiation. Stanowski heaves his pack. His Enfield feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. He is a farmer from Saskatchewan, drafted to protect his home, who mutinied against his government and is now about to die in a German forest, surrounded by strangers who hate him. Mortars! The cry is thin. An earth-shaking crump hits 50 yards away. Stanowski dives, his face smashing into the mud. He tastes diesel and blood. The 18-year-old volunteer is screaming. A high-pitched, awful sound that cuts through the shelling. "Shut him up!" Muldowney roars. Stanowski crawls over. The boy is on his back, holding his stomach. He's not screaming in panic, he's screaming in agony. A single piece of shrapnel has torn him open. Stanowski, the zombie, the coward, finds his hands are perfectly steady. He grabs the boy's shell dressing and presses it into the wound, trying to hold the kid together. "It's all right." Stanowski lies. "You're all right." Gauthier is there, too, his face ashen, holding the boy's hand. Sergeant Muldowney watches them. He watches these two Conchis, these two illegal soldiers, work with desperate, grim competence to save a volunteer. The boy dies. Right there in the mud. In Stanowski's arms. Muldowney crawls over. He looks at Stanowski, then at Gauthier. The contempt in his eyes is gone. It's replaced by something far worse. It's just tired. "Get your rifle, Corporal," he says to Stanowski. "The line is forward." Stanowski nods. He picks up his rifle. He's no longer a farmer. He is no longer a prisoner. He's just... Next. The war ends 2 months later. Of the 16,000 conscripts who were forcibly sent, only 12,908 ever made it to the front. The mutinies, the desertions, and the simple, bureaucratic slowness of the machine had wasted the rest. Of those, only a fraction, less than 3,000, ever saw actual combat. The war was moving too fast. Germany was collapsing. The veteran divisions, the real army, were so efficient by then that the zombies were often just used to hold the rear. In the end, 234 NRMA conscripts were killed in action. 234 men, forced across an ocean, to die in the final. Dying moments of a war that was already won. Mackenzie King survived. His government did not fall. He would go on to win the next election, his promise to Quebec broken, but his grip on power secure. Corporal Mike Stanowski did not die. He was in Germany when the ceasefire was called. He helped process refugees, and in October 1945, he was put on a ship, sent home, and quietly discharged. He never spoke of it. He never told his wife about the mutiny, or the train, or the boy in the mud. He went back to his farm in Saskatchewan. The 60,000-man secret army was Canada's paradox. It was an army of ghosts, born from a broken promise that haunted the nation. It was an army that tore the country apart to keep it together, an army that refused to fight until it was forced to. And in the end, it was an army that was sent to prove a political point, only to arrive in time to count the dead.